Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. I am Paige and this is my mid-month wrap up. So we are already halfway through May. Actually, we're a little past halfway. I meant to get this video out earlier, but it just didn't happen, but better late than never. So these books run through May 1st to the 17th. And I read 15 books during that time. So far I have 10 5-star reads, 1 4-star read, 2 3-star reads, 1 2-star read, and 1 1-star read. And you know that it is very highly unlikely that I ever rate books below a 3-star. But this month I actually read a 2-star and a 1-star. We will get to those eventually. So the first book I read in May was Defending Allye by Susan Stoker. So Susan Stoker's books are like romantic suspense, and usually something always happens to the heroine in the story, and usually the heroes are some type of on a task force or in the military or a cop or firefighter, something along those lines, and they have to rescue her. So this one revolves around a girl who is a dancer. She's like dances ballet and all kinds of dancing, and she attracts the attention of a bad guy, and so he is wanting to kidnap her, but she is the hero of the story. I don't remember his name. He keeps her safe at his house, but the bad guy keeps kidnapping girls from her job. And so finally she says, you know, enough is enough. She's gonna put herself out as bait, so that way he and the rest of his team could catch the bad guy, because he has been kidnapping and murdering women. And so that is what this book is about. It is very suspense heavy with a romance. So I rated this one 5 stars. The next one is Sherry Noel by Margot Scott. I rated this one 5 stars as well. This is a shorter read, but it was amazing. I really didn't go into this book with high expectations because I had seen this recommended. I have joined a new group type of book on Facebook. It's for dark and taboo books. And you will see that I've read some of the recommendations from that group for this month. This was one of the recommendations, and it is about a girl who ends up in a polyamorous relationship with her stepbrother and his dad. So very taboo. Her dad jumps from relationship to relationship, and so he says, okay, meet me for dinner. I want you to meet my new girlfriend. Well, ended up they eloped, and now her dad is married for the, like 3rd or 4th time. And they also bring her son in to meet everybody as well. So they're all meeting together for the first time. And and they had already seen each other previously before they came into the restaurant, and they were very attracted to each other, but then it was like, oh, you're my stepsister, stepbrother type of situation. Well, it ends up she has nowhere to go for Christmas. This is kind of like a holiday read, but it's such a wonderful read. And she has nowhere to go for Christmas because her dad and his new wife is like going on a cruise, and her mother lives in like this hippie commune type of place, and she just doesn't want to be there. So her new stepbrother invites her to spend Christmas with him and his dad, like in the mountains. His dad owns like this, it's not a bed and breakfast, but it's the main lodge, and then he has like cabins that people rent out to stay in. And when she goes there, she's very attracted to both of them, and this ends up being the relationship between all 3 of them. And I love the ending it left off on because it just wrapped up so nicely. And I don't know, I just really love this one. So the next one is A Twisted Kind of Love by November Sweets, and I rated this one 2 stars. So I wanted to read something polyamorous going from Sherry Noel. I just wanted to read something else like this. I went into this having higher expectations, and I was disappointed. This was about a girl who is going to college, and she is attracted to two of her professors and one of her classmates, and it's a romance between all four of them. And her classmate is actually stepson, once upon a time was stepson to one of the professors. So they're like all in a relationship together, but it is really cheesy. It's full of insta love. It just wasn't done well. And I just don't, they just kind of like all jumped into bed together very quickly. There wasn't any kind of angst to it because it was just, hey, let's all do this. And I've been pining after this, my student, for years. And it was just really, really weird. And so I just rated it 2 stars. The next one is extremely taboo. I should have known going into this book that it was going to be an extremely taboo novel, because that's literally part of the title of like the explanation of the book. But I went into this blind because the people on this new group that I've been getting recommendations from, I've kind of been in a slumpy mood, and I've been wanting some books to just like really for the shock value. Well, this one sure had the shock value, but I rated it a 1 star because it was just terrible. So terrible. So I went into this book really not knowing much about it. But this is Azula by Seven Rue, and I've actually read a book before by Seven Rue, which is Echo, and I really liked it. It was about a girl who had a relationship with these 3 brothers, and she was deaf. I really enjoyed Echo a lot, so I was hoping to enjoy this one as well, but I did not. I rated it 1 star. So I don't talking about this book makes me so self-conscious, but this book, I almost DNF'd it so many times, but I got through it. This book is a more familial love book, and it was not done well at all. So it's about the girl who's with her dad, her uncle, her cousin, and her brothers. And it was so bad, so bad. And there's just so many horrific things that was not done well in this book. For one thing, her writing was atrocious. There were so many mistakes, and it just felt like it was written by somebody who, you know, it was just terrible. And then with it being so taboo, it was more taboo than I felt comfortable with. And then there was also some very cringy scenes in it, with problematic scenes as well. So I do not recommend this book. And I also DNF'd. I tried to read another one by Seven Rue, and it was 56, and I DNF'd it because it's about a girl who's trying to entice and have a romantic relationship with her dad's best friend. And I just got tired of the writing style. She was 18, and she was just I wanted more of a storyline and angst instead of just her throwing herself at him. And I had it with Seven Rue. I have read the one good book by her, but I don't know if I will read anything else by Seven Rue. It's just, I don't know if these are like older books or what, but they're problematic and not for me. And then I read Take a Hint, Dani Brown. I absolutely adored this book. I rated it 5 stars. I don't know why it's taken me so long to continue on in the, is it the Brown Sisters? Because I think that's what the series is called. But the first one is Get a Life, Chloe Brown. I read that a long time ago. And now I just finally got to Take a Hint, Dani Brown. And this is by Talia Hibbert, and it was amazing. So this is about a girl who is, she's like a professor. I was kind of still confused about that. It's like she is a professor, but she's also a student at the same time. And she comes to work every day, and the guy who checks in the teachers and students and everything they have this amazing friendship. And she always brings him like coffee, and he always gives her a granola bar to eat for breakfast in the morning. And they just have this really cool relationship. And so then they end up being a viral sensation because he used to be famous, and because he was some rugby, I think, sports player. And so they decide to have a fake relationship because he is trying to start, or he has started it, but he needs more funding for this foundation that he's beginning. And so they decide to have a fake relationship, and it of course turns into more. And I really love the anxiety representation in this because he suffers from a lot of anxiety. He has lost his dad and his brother, and I felt a lot from, you know, going through similar situations and having the anxiety. I felt like it was represented very well, and I completely enjoyed the book. And then I read Rush by Brianna Hale. This is the Taboo Book Club's pick for May, and this is the Daddy Kink, which is what Tamika picked for the club for this month. And I'm usually not into that, but Rush was amazing. I rated this one 5 stars. This is about a rock star, and he wants this girl to do the choreography skills or assemble a dance for his upcoming music video. She has been in a bad situation with rock stars in the past, and they've drug her through the mud. So she really is hesitant about, you know, doing this with him. But he finally, you know, he pursues her, and she finally says yes, and then they begin a relationship. And I really, really enjoyed this one. I didn't think I was going to like it because I usually don't read Daddy Kink, but it was done very, very well, and I really, really enjoyed it. Then I read Act Your Age, Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is the 3rd book in that series, and I enjoyed this one as well. I rated it 5 stars. This revolves around the youngest sister, Eve, and her parents kind of put a dilemma on her. It's like, you know, we are stopping your inheritance money, and so you can find a job and stick to it for like a year. Because she's very flighty. She goes from one thing to the next because she doesn't really believe in herself. And so she goes out on a drive because she's kind of, you know, angry. She happens to run into this bed and breakfast. She sees that they are hiring. She goes in for an interview. The guy who owns the bed and breakfast completely dislikes Eve because he can just tell that she is unprepared, that she's, you know, not what he wants. He has autism, and he likes everything to be just right and to the T. And when she's leaving, she accidentally runs him over with her car. So now he has like a broken arm. It's a broken arm. And his friend is like, you know, can you help, you know, us run it while he's recovering? And so she is working at this bed and breakfast while also getting to know her employer. He does not like her, but then she starts to prove him wrong, that he judged her, you know, by the clothes she wore and the color of her hair, and not knowing that just because that's who she is, that she is not successful and can run the bed and breakfast. She's takes over the chef position, so she cooks the food for the bed and breakfast, and this was their romance, and I loved it so much. The next book I read is Sweet Temptation by Cora Reilly. This is one of her mafia romances, and this is a standalone, but I did see a character from her other series in it. I've read the first book, I think it's Bound by Honor, in her other mafia series, and so I did see that character in it, but you can read this book as a standalone. But of course this is a mafia, so the hero of the story is, they call them an underboss, because I guess he rules like that city or that territory, and his wife died, and now he's left with 2 children, like an 8-month-old and a 2-year-old, I think is what it is. He needs a mother for his children, so there is an arranged marriage between another underboss from a different city, and they arranged for his daughter and him to be married. She's young. She's 17, you know, when this happens, but they wait until she's 18. And, you know, there's an age gap between them, and he feels like he's robbing the cradle, so to speak. But when, you know, she has no experience with children, she doesn't really know what she's doing, but when she comes to live with him, she just kind of puts forth her best effort, and she realizes that this family needs somebody to, you know, they're missing that one thing that, you know, will glue them all back together, and she is that thing. The children need a mother. They need someone they can trust, and someone who will love them and give them the time that they need. He needs somebody to love him as well. He's never really experienced that, and so she's just the glue that kind of binds them all together, and I really love this one as well. I gave it 5 stars. The next one I read is Call Me Daddy by Jade West. I had started this book last year, I think. I don't know when it was, but I put it down because I just wasn't interested in it at the time. This is also another daddy kink type of book, and I think that's why I kind of put it down. But after reading Rush, I'm like, you know, I need to give it a second chance. So I read it, and I rated it 3 stars. It just wasn't as good as that. It had more, I don't know all the correct terms, but it had more of the actual, like, role playing as, you know, little girl and daddy. I don't know, I just didn't like this one as well. This is about a girl, her mother has never really taken care of her, and she's just kind of had to fend for herself all of her life. And one night, her best friend takes her out to go to a party. I think it's her birthday, and she ends up stranded. And so this guy, this much older guy, sees her, picks her up, takes her home, and, you know, starts taking care of her. And that's one of his things, is what he really is into, is the caretaking and all that. So this was their relationship. It was just okay. It wasn't anything mind-blowing. It also wasn't terrible, so I rated it 3 stars. Then I read Perfectly Warped by Danielle James. I've read a couple of books by Danielle James and thoroughly enjoyed them, and I was hoping that this one wouldn't be another book that I like, but I gave it a 3 stars. It just, I wish, it's pretty taboo as well. I wish it just had been a little bit different part of the story, because this is technically a dad and a daughter, but they don't know that. He doesn't even know he had a child until her mother dies and she goes to look for her dad. And when he first sees her, he's very attracted to her until she tells him that, you know, my mom always said that you're my dad. And so she moves in with him because she's homeless, and they're both fighting attraction for each other, and they decide not to find out, that they would just have a relationship, and if it is true, then it would just, even if it is or is not true, they chose to have that relationship with themselves. I wish it had kind of been like, the story had been where it wasn't her dad. But I know that it kind of takes out some of the taboo-ness of the story, but it was an okay story. There was also a little bit of suspense in this book, because there was, she felt like her mother died. It wasn't just, you know, like a freak accident. It was somebody murdered her, and so then she stalked, and then she's taken. So there's a lot more action to this book as well. But I gave it a 3 stars because I wish it had been a little bit different, or turned out to be a little bit different. It just was a little cringy sometimes. The next one I read is Bridget Spain by Ruby Dixon. This is the last book in the Ice Home series. This is the spin-off of the Ice Planet Barbarian series. And this is the last book for now. I think she will write more. But this is about the girl Bridget, and we've seen her through several books now because she and Atom fooled around. She didn't like it. And of course, when these big aliens, they think that just because they don't really believe in like fooling around. It's like, oh, if you're with me, then you're with me for life, pretty much. So he thinks that she is his mate, and she's like, no, get away from me. And so the other people of the tribe, they don't really know what exactly went down. They think that Bridget is a tease and that she's stringing him along, but there's much more behind the scenes than anybody knows. And so there is a lot of miscommunication in this book. Adam is really stubborn, and they have another girl on the Ice Planet. I think she was like studying to become like a therapist or something on Earth, and so she becomes their therapist, which I really like that part of the story. And they both had their talks with her so that way they could communicate more efficiently. And I don't know, this was just another good book to the series. I didn't think I was gonna like it very much because it's Bridget, but there is way more to her than is what has been shown about her through the previous books, and I rated this one 5 stars. And then I read All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata, and this was amazing. Of course I knew it was probably going to be amazing because it's Mariana Zapata. I haven't read anything by her that I haven't liked. This is about a girl who gets out of this very toxic relationship, and she goes to move back to the small town where she grew up at. Her mother died on this hike because her mother was very adventurous. She loved hiking through the mountains, and she disappeared one day and they never could find her. So then she was sent to live with her aunt and uncle, and now she's back because her life is she's just starting over in life, and she wants to be back to the place where her mother was, and she wants to start hiking some of the same trails that her mom really liked to hike, you know, just to feel closer to her mom. Well, she rents this, it's an apartment over a garage at this guy's house. She goes there, and then all of a sudden he comes in and like, what are you doing in my house? And she's like, what are you doing? I rented this from you. Well, it was actually his son that went behind his back to rent out the apartment. And he's like, okay, well, you have 1 month and then you got to find somewhere else. But it's such a small town that she couldn't find anything else. And over the time, you know, he's really like, he's a game warden, and he's, you know, a grumpy guy, and she just kind of starts to wear at him. He like helps her. There's a bat that gets in her house that just terrifies her. He has to get that out for her, and then like she has car problems, he helps her fix it. And even though he didn't really want to see her around, and then she just grows on him, and he's like, you're mine and you're staying here type of situation. And it was such an adorable book. I loved it so much. Oh, I loved this one so much. And of course I rated it 5 stars. Then I read The Glue by Webster. This is a menage, and this is about a guy who's going to college, and he is crushing on his professor, and he just started a new job, and he's also crushing on his boss. And he kind of does something with both of them, not realizing that they are married to each other. So there is technical cheating in this book. But they immediately put a stop to it, and like, hey, I'm married. And then they all three meet and then decide to have something together because their marriage is failing. They have been trying to have a child. It has pushed them apart and their marriage is just broken. And so he kind of gets them back together, and then he kind of steps out of the picture like, okay, well, they're back together. They're happily married now. I'm just going to kind of step out of it. It doesn't last because, their marriage isn't just going to be fixed overnight like that. And so he's brought back into the picture because he's just kind of like the part that they need. And so this is their relationship between all three of them. And it was a good story. I enjoyed it. It wasn't a 5-star read, but I did rate it 4 stars. I enjoyed their relationship. I liked how even though it wasn't typical, they made it work. And they all needed each other. They're all separate people. They're all separate people who provides a different aspect to the relationship. Then I read No Tomorrow by Carian. I am working my way through her backlist, and I only have one book left to read on her backlist, and then I'm all caught up. But this was such an emotional story. A lot happens in this book, and this is a big book. So I was not prepared for what all went on in this book, but I rated it 5 stars because part of me didn't want to rate it that highly because of what all took for the couple to be together. But then I kept thinking, even though all this happened, they were still meant to be together and they found a way to work it out. So I did end up giving it a 5 star. This is about a girl who she meets this guy. Every day at work on her lunch break, she goes to the park to eat her lunch, and she sees this guy playing his guitar and in the park with his dog, and she is very intrigued with him. She loves his music. He's very talented. And he starts, he comes over one day and they begin talking and they form up a relationship. And they talk, and he's homeless. And even though with that, when she goes to meet him one night, they start a thing between themselves and they have a relationship, but it's a very unconventional relationship. Of course, he chooses to be homeless because he is just an eccentric person. And as you read this book, you can tell that something is up with him. But neither of them, I don't know why it didn't, ring any bells for her as to why he acted the way he acted, because at times he would just become like a different person. He would talk, to himself. He would be writing the words on the pages, but they were just like marks on the page that wasn't even words. When he was like writing his songs, he would become very aggravated and very just emotional at times. And I don't know why it didn't ring any bells for her to like, hey, I think something is up. But anyway, he didn't want to be tied down to anything. So she didn't want to make him that way, but she was asking him if he would move in with her. And so then he just one day left, and she didn't see him for years, and she always wondered where he was. And 3 months later, after he left, she found out she's pregnant, and she didn't even know his last name. She didn't know how to get in contact because he has no phone. Of course, he has no address. And so now she has this baby. She doesn't know where he is. And years later, I think the baby is 3, she discovers that he has started this band, and it's a band that is just super popular. So she goes to one of his concerts to talk to him, and she wants to tell him about their child. Well, they, you know, immediately meet, and he takes her back to his hotel and they have a night together. Well, the next day she's about to tell him that she has, you know, they have a child together when she finds him doing drugs in the bathroom. So she decides to leave. That, you know, she will not let that, you know, type of situation be around her daughter. Well, he catches her before she leaves, and she, you know, she's just kind of like, yeah, we have a child together, and, you know, this is not cool, this is not acceptable. So then he spends years trying to be better. You know, he'll be clean, then he'll start doing drugs again, then he'll be clean, and then he'll start doing drugs again. And she's just, you know, at some point she does introduce, or she tells her daughter that, you know, she has a dad, but it takes a lot for her to finally let him meet her and whatnot. But a lot of things go on, and then it, more towards the end, it comes out that he has mental illnesses. So something tragic happens to where he's actually finally able to, you know, be in this place where the doctors are helping him figure out what's going on, and with the right therapy and the right medication, it actually makes him better. It helps control the mental illnesses he has and be a better person, the person that she has wanted all along. And this goes on for a long time throughout their lives. It's off and on again, but the struggles that they go through, and then they come out on the other side finally after all they've been through together, it's just, it ended up being a really good story. It's a little angsty at times because, you know, it's like, oh, won't they just be together? But it's their struggle, and it's, you know, it just shows what all they went through to finally have their happily ever after. And the last book for my mid-month wrap-up is I read Heartbones by Colleen Hoover. This was such a great read also. I rated it 5 stars. This is about a girl who has grown up with a mother who was addicted to drugs. And she has a dad, but growing up, she only stayed with him for a little bit of the summer. And she hasn't seen him actually in a few years. Well, her mother ends up overdosing on drugs and dies, and so the landlord is kicking her out, so she has to go live with her dad. Her dad doesn't even know the situation fully because she's always kept it from him. You know, she wanted everything to seem like it was okay. And so now she's living with her dad, and she meets this guy who is living in the house next to her dad's house, and they begin a relationship, but they say, you know, it's only going to be for the summer because they're both leaving in August. She was leaving for college, was doing something else, until something happens to where she finds out that the guy that she's been falling for is not who he says he is. But she stays on his side and fights for him, fights for a better life. And I really enjoyed their story. It was very, very good. I love how she, you know, found, you know, after all this hardship in her life, and then finally, you know, she starts to have a good relationship with her dad, and she gains a sister through the process because he is remarried. And it was just kind of like a found family aspect, and also her finding love in it as well, and also making life better for herself. It was just an excellent read, and I'm glad I finally read it. So those are all 15 books that I read in the first half of May. Let me know if you've read any of these or if any of them are interesting to you. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.